3, 2, and 1. Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between, welcome to This Is a Revolution, your weekly RevPro podcast. As always, I've got my good friend Dave the Mark here to discuss all things RevPro and the week that has just been. Dave, my friend, how are we doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, mate. I very much enjoyed my inaugural trip to Doncaster. I'm hoping that the show was a success enough to go back. I really enjoyed the venue. Thought it was great for wrestling. Thought that the show was amazing. And do you know what? I did have massive FOMO with Royal Quest, having to watch it from home with the little boy's birthday. But it was quite nice getting to sit with my feet up and having a coffee and watching it from home as a novelty. But it's certainly not something I'm gonna get used to. I should be back front row at the 229 and at every other RevPro show till the end of the year.
Yeah. Well, where was it you watched it, Dave?
Literally, mate. The little boy, having an autistic birthday, right? It's something very, very different. He very much wanted to stay within his comfort zone. So on the Saturday when we were at Global Wars, he had 3 or 4 friends round, and they had basically a Minecraft party where they all just sat on screens and played Minecraft together. So
Wonderful.
The most anti-social yet social birthday party ever. Very glad I didn't have to go to that. And then on the Sunday, he wanted to go swimming and he wanted to go to the cinema to watch Paddington 2. So we went swimming. When we got back from swimming, we discovered that you could rent Paddington 2 from home on Prime. And we said to him, do you want to watch it at the cinema or do you want to watch it from home with snacks and sweets and popcorn and stuff? And he was like, we can watch it without going out. And we were like, yes, we'll do that. And the minute he said it, I was just like, oh, amazing. Because now we don't have to drive back from the cinema and I will definitely get to watch all of Royal Quest. I thought I was going to miss the pre-show, but I got to go straight into the show from the very start and thoroughly enjoyed it, mate.
I love how you're looking for the benefits here. It's not that, hey, this is what my son wants. This is how he prefers it. It's like, I didn't have to miss any of Royal Quest. Yeah. Yes. Oh, mate. I have to say as well, the Paddington...
Don't misses, but wrestling always comes first.
Yeah, oh, shocker, Dave, shocker. We've recently had installed in town a bench that's got Paddington on it. And it seems to be a thing that's happening in a few places. And there's one in Southampton as well. It's literally a bench you can sit down next to Paddington and get your picture taken with. This is why people think where I am, they think that we're all posh down here because we have benches with Paddington on, but they don't actually come round and see what the people in the town are like. But yeah. Well, glad you had a great one, mate. And only you could be the man that comes on podcast week and we go, I'm really looking forward to going to Doncaster or Sheffield or Coventry. All these wonderful places in the UK. But no, mate, glad you enjoyed it. It was a great time for me up in Doncaster. Anytime I get to go back there, I'm 21 again, literally 21. As you know from saying to you, this is where I met Samoa Joe. This is where I met AJ Styles. This is where it was literally that for me the whole day. And I want it to be successful enough that it goes back every single time, every single year even. Give us a Global Wars there every year or something. I don't care. I'll do this 5.5-hour drive up and back. Well, mate, I'm glad we had a good one. And it was a good show because that was a lot of effort that went into both of us getting there. But you know what, Dave? I think we'll get straight into things. We have a wonderful, wonderful guest this week. Becoming a bit of a norm on this podcast that we're getting guests in and loving it. We have none other than what I would say is the true heart and soul of Revolution Pro Wrestling. The voice of RevPro. And as you, I think, have once dubbed as well, the First Lady of RevPro.
Absolutely.
We
have First Lady of RevPro.
None other than Francesca Oliver. Francesca,
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Yes.
How are you?
Oh, I'm just about recovered from the weekend. It was, it was a big one.
Yeah, it looks overnight. Was it an overnight stay in Doncaster, then an early morning trip to London on the Sunday?
Not quite. It was a drive down to South London after Doncaster.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was about a 4-hour journey. Didn't get in until it was about 1:30, I think it was, maybe.
Ooh, tough.
Yeah, but and then I did stay in London after Royal Quest, but that was a bit more simpler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Absolutely.
long weekend. I left at 10 a.m. Saturday morning and got back here after picking up the dog from my mum's about 5 o'clock yesterday.
Wow. That is dedication to the bit, right? Because yeah, at least with us, we can just go back to our hotel and we can just crash. But you can't. You've got another show to get to.
That's the thing. It's wrestling. Like with last weekend, you may have seen that I'd only actually had 3 hours sleep before doing the Southampton show because I was in Italy the night before doing a show which didn't start until 9 o'clock that night.
Wow,
So,
that was your first international show, was it not?
It was, and I'm very lucky for the opportunity, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. I got to meet some fabulous people, work with some incredible wrestlers, and really hoping that I get those more opportunities. I'm available to book people, as long as there's not a RevPro show, obviously.
In the space of 2 weekends, you've had your first international booking. So you've been the voice of a show in Italy, and then you've done global wars with wrestlers from near enough every promotion in the world on it, and then the first female voice of a New Japan show on the Sunday.
Yeah,
that's pretty. That's stuff that surely. Were they even on your goals for 2024, or were they like pipe dreams?
They were always dreams things that I wanted to achieve, but I knew kind of it might not become available to me. So to get that and to get it within a week of each other as well, it's got to be all downhill from here, surely.
That's on 229 next week. Yeah. Where are you this weekend?
I've got a weekend off.
Have you?
A rare weekend off, yes. So I haven't even thought about it, to be fair.
Nice.
Just
well deserved.
Spend time with the dog. He's felt abandoned lately. It was the Stevenage weekend, British J Cup, which, because that show's not in the evening, I get to leave a bit later on a Saturday, but then of course I get in early hours and then have to leave early again because we're in Sheffield the next day. So often with shows like that, it's the next morning. I get up and he's like, no, where are you going? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I gotta go again. But my mum pops in on him and stuff, so he's all right. He loves his nana. To be fair, I think he loves her more than me, but she does feed him a lot. That's probably why.
I'm 99% certain that all three of my children love their nana more than they love me. But you know, I think this is the cost we pay for being absentee parents at times.
It is, but at least they're well loved, and that's the main thing.
Absolutely. So with Royal Quest, when did you first? When did you finally get the moment where you were like, yes, 100%, this is happening. I'm going to be the voice of Royal Quest.
So I was first asked back in June, because I remember being in Stevenage at the time. Not believe that I was there and I was doing that. Like, now looking back on it, I'm like, I did that, but did I don't know. It's it's so many things have happened to me in wrestling that I am so grateful for, and I've kind of almost just found myself in these positions. So sometimes it is hard to, like, the mental gymnastics of it, to go, I don't get it. Like, merch. People want merch off me.
Gotta give the people what they want.
Well, obviously. But what? Like,
I know what the t-shirt must look like as well. I am not a graphic designer, but it has to have a little bow tie here.
Yeah.
Obviously, it needs a little bow tie here. And then any one of those monikers that you've been given from people who love what you bring to RevPro, any of them would look beautiful on a shirt. And I know that if you bring that shirt out, I will be buying 3 immediately because all my children will want one.
Yeah. That's like, this is what I mean. I'm like, but why? I'm an announcer. I'm not a wrestler. Okay, I do kind of have a bit more of a prominent figure in RevPro. I've got my entrance that's kind of just developed through time. And like, I remember saying to Andy, it was a Huntingdon show. It was the second show I did. And I just remember saying the phrase, it's not about me. I'm just here to make the wrestlers sound good. And that's kind of always the way I've kind of held myself in wrestling. I am just an additional figure. It's not about me. But like, fans seem to want to buy merch and have things that are specifically Francesca. So, my life is wild.
I think a big part of it is the fact that you, like what you've just said about you wanting to highlight the wrestlers, and you are there to introduce and make sure that they get everything that they want. It's this beautiful professional performance. I think that, and the fact that that's so genuine, and the fact that you're so humble, is exactly why we love you so much. Because when you come out and you see the crowd, your smile is so warm and genuine. And when you hear the Francesca chants, you always look like you're kind of taken away with it. And I think the ring announcing is such an important thing, because if a ring announcer doesn't deliver, it really does take something away, or it fails to add something. And then I've definitely been to shows and where I've felt, and I've definitely seen shows online where I felt like the ring announcers are trying to be the center of attention in that moment. And that, I really don't like it. It really grates on me. And I think it's the fact that yours is such a professional and consistent but warm and genuine delivery that is what makes you so synonymous with it. And you're at every show up and down the country, and that is, you are as synonymous with it as it would be for people that are watching RevPro on demand and listening to Andy and Sarah Hatch and Chris Hatch and Ref Harv and Oscar. You guys do all such integral parts to the process, and it wouldn't be the same without you.
Oh, I appreciate that. And that's the thing, and all the people that you mentioned, everybody does work so hard at RevPro, and they're all so committed, and a lot of the time don't get the recognition for what they do and how talented they are and everything they put in, because like I said, because they're not the wrestlers. But I'm glad people like you guys do see that, and every single person that you've just mentioned deserves to be recognized, because they are all very good at what they do.
They absolutely are. And one of the things I've said to Dave when we started this podcast was I wanted to use it as a platform to really highlight those people who aren't in the ring as well, like yourself, like Sarah, like Chris, like all of those guys, because everyone's got interesting stories and views, right? Like I've watched interviews with you, I've spoken with Sarah and Chris about things of wrestling. It's like the way everyone's brain works about how they get to their performance and what they add to a show. It's something really different and really unique. Yeah, you guys might not get, well, actually, I say you guys might not get in the ring. Well, a couple of months ago, that all changed for all three of you, didn't it? But seriously, like, you all have to look at what you're doing to kind of enhance the product around you, but you're also there connecting with the audience in a different way. You're connecting the audience as the sort of the liaison between the people before they get in the ring and with us, keeping that energy up there. Sarah's doing that by the evocative images that she captures and really highlighting everything. So that's what I mean. I'm someone that loves to know how things are done backstage without knowing too much, but actually the production side. So I find it all really interesting, which is why having you guys on here and having you on here was like a really big thing for me, that we really want to highlight the people that make RevPro what it is. And as Dave was saying there, you're probably the only person I would imagine, like, and even when you include the wrestlers, you've probably been on more shows at RevPro this year than Michael Oku has, even when he was champion, which is quite mad when you think about that, right?
It is. And what's even crazier is now we're 3.5 years down the line. Andy doesn't even send me the dates anymore. He just knows I'll be there. Like, literally not sent me a single date for this year. So, yeah.
I love
it's lucky. It's lucky that I look, really. Otherwise, I'm like, you know that, but I didn't know.
Francesca, no. Where would you be able to find those dates?
So that would be on www.revolutionprowrestling.com.
Look at that, absolute professional.
You guys, right? So that Southampton thing. Oh, if it wasn't for you guys, like, I struggled, like, and I couldn't work out why. I now know why my brain wasn't functioning. I had a bit of a minor ailment issue, but yeah, and that's the thing. I appreciate, like, all the fans, but, like, with you guys as well. If I'm struggling, you guys, you jump in and you like just helped me, and I'm like, yes. And
I have this thing that at the end of every show, I always head over to the merch before I go, just to see if anybody's come out whose signature I haven't got in my photo book, which is like a little side quest thing that I'm doing. But I have this thing of never getting up and leaving until you finished your thing. It's like, we will remain seated and we will wait for Francesca. I broke the rule once and once only, and it was when ELP was in the 229 a few weeks ago. And it was like, everybody is going to want ELP. And it's like, if I don't get him to sign the book now, I might never get another chance to do it. So I was like, I'm going to do it. And then I will know that it was worth the disrespect. But for me, it's like, yes, it's a sacrilege to stand up and move whilst Francesca's finishing a bit.
Yeah,
I find it a bit difficult, especially on the larger shows, because like your York Hall shows and things like that, there's always going to be something at the end. Something's going to happen. Yeah. And then once that's done, everybody just goes to leave. And I'm like,
hang on.
Do I bother saying anything or not? I don't know. I'll just speak to this empty room. Actually, that doesn't happen at York Hall. People need to get out quicker at York Hall.
Trent Seven's running through Bethnal Green with Michael Oku's belt, and you're in the ring saying, don't forget, RevProOnDemand.com.
Got to get the little plugs in there. And they wouldn't be happy if I didn't make sure everybody knew. But yeah, 3 different web addresses. ShopRevPro.com, RevolutionProWrestling.com, and RevProOnDemand.com. Oh dear. But apart from that one time in Southampton, yeah, I tend to get it most of the time. 9 times out of 10, we will say.
Oh no, 99 times out of 100.
Of 100, absolutely. But yeah, I'm like you, Dave. I literally now, I'm at a stage where I'm like, I will not move until this announcement's done, because I couldn't imagine being in that ring doing that announcement and then people are just kind of like going on around. Like, I've been on stage probably 3 or 4 times in my life, and if people were just wandering around, I'd be like, what's going on? Like, I wouldn't be able to concentrate. So yeah, I just will not move until those announcements are done. It's like you said, Dave, sacrilege, absolute sacrilege.
Yeah.
So I've just remembered, because we're talking about it, the first time I ever did that sign off was maybe my third or fourth show. So the first time I did it was actually in Southampton.
Wonderful.
And it just came out. I was like, yeah, we're just going to finish the show like this. And then it was like, no, this is how we finish shows now. And it's been the same way ever since then.
And is that something that, like, you don't realise that's going to be the catchphrase until you say it, and then you hear it and you're like, that's it. Like, that's the one.
So, like, a majority of what I do, I think people don't understand. In a lot of promotions I've worked with, I've maybe once or twice only have people go, I want you to say this. I want you to say this like this. Because I know I've been told I'm pretty unique about how I announce, like, and sometimes the way I phrase things. But that is just me finding my own rhythm. And it seems to have kind of clicked and worked. So, yes, I don't sound exactly like all the other professional wrestlers, but it's because I've just developed my own style and not necessarily had that kind of stiff direction kind of thing. Like, this is like WWE, for example, like that would be, this is how you're doing it. This is when you're saying it. This is exactly, do not say anything else or in any other way. Whereas I've been lucky that, yeah, the places are just do your thing. And that's literally what people often say to me, just go do your thing. So
Wait, have you always done the I've got one question for you? Has that been on every RevPro show, or is that something that evolved?
No, I think the first time that happened was in Stevenage. But I couldn't tell you how long ago that was, maybe 2 years ago. It was just something else that I kind of just fell into it and went, this works.
Yeah.
So, and I like to, especially with RevPro, because it's a brand. So I try to keep it as it is. Like, if I go to other promotions, I don't say the exact same words, but I still often follow that kind of route of what I do. But yeah, especially on RevPro, with it being streamed live, having large live audiences and having such a massive following, like a majority of people that come to RevPro shows are RevPro fans. Like, we can go to like different venues around the country and you can tell they're wrestling fans, but they're not always RevPro fans. But like I said, with it being a brand, I like to keep it as it is. So then everybody knows I'm going to come out, I'm going to say that. You fans get the opportunity to get involved. And of course, my one favorite thing that's always been my favorite thing since I started in wrestling, well, when I was going to watch wrestling, before I was actually in wrestling and then stuck to it, is the one fall. Like, I know some people don't like the one fall thing, but hearing just a whole crowd shout back at me, one fall, it gets me every time. And you might even notice sometimes, like literally just after, I like smirk because I'm like
it's nice though, isn't it? Like you said, like it's one of those things that for a long time I've always said I don't like it, but at the same time it's nice just to see everyone enjoying themselves. Like, you don't have to go to a show and like everything, right? But I imagine, like you said, the way that just comes back to you and just be like, wow, like these people are responding to me and what I do. I tell you, like, a thing that I do all the time, like, unironically, when I'm watching on stream, on the occasions I'm not at a show, I'll go away in the kitchen. I'll be like, "Oh, it's time for the second half," and I'll just say it like that. Like, but that's like that is the thing that is said, right? And it's like you said, it's very consistent. Of what's coming, and like you said, when you go to those new places, people know what they're getting. The brand of RevPro has you doing what you do consistently across everything. People can get involved, and it's that thing that I think for me, like, it's that familiarity. Like, I've been to a lot of different indie shows and what's this going to be like, how interactive is it going to be, and I think RevPro has that nice balance between interactive and can actually like enjoy a real good show alongside it as well. That's what I like, and that's probably a big part of the reason why I've become such a big RevPro fan, because 2 years ago I was that person, like you said. I was a wrestling fan who watched a bit of RevPro. So I'd come to the odd Southampton show, and then more and more, like, as everything kind of just, all the pieces started fitting in. Dave and I have been listening to the A Squared podcast. Like, we've been delving into that, and there's one episode recorded in Southampton. And I've been to Southampton shows before you were in the company, Francesca, and I was listening back to it, I was like, that doesn't sound right, because you can hear the previous ring announcer. I'm like, that's a man ring announcing, like, that doesn't sound, that's just not right. And it's a testament to like how you've made that role your own, really.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, it was I'm not gonna lie, it's not easy being a female ring announcer. I know gender shouldn't really come into things, but in the wrestling world, it used to, used to be a bit kind of few and far between, but now there are several, and in the UK alone, several great female ring announcers. But yeah, it's not been easy, but I'm very grateful to be on the platform that I am, and like you said earlier, I am the voice of RevPro, and Andy Quilden did say something very nice to me. Actually, Andy Quilden says a lot of very nice things to me. He's a very supportive boss, and him alone doesn't get the credit that he deserves, because I don't think a lot of people understand how much work not only goes into RevPro, but like Raw Quest, like. It was New Japan, but the person on the ground in the UK doing everything was Andy Quilden, and he deserves so much credit for everything he does. Yeah. But he did say to me once that there isn't a RevPro without Francesca. So
that's amazing.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think I really took for granted how much Andy did until I was at a show one day and I literally saw him backing the van up. And I was like, and that kind of hit home to me. I was like, wow, he really does do like everything. He gets involved in everything.
And that's the thing. And it's not just what you see it shows. It's every day during the week. You know, that's what leads up to doing the shows. It's not like we've all just woke up this morning, decided to do a show, and there you are. There is a lot of work that goes into every single show. And the production as well. There is people work so hard. Like Harry Milligan, he to do what he does is I honestly, and this is probably Andy would feel the same. No one that is on par to Harry with the production of what he does.
Such an unsung hero.
Oh, 100%.
100%. You watch a RevPro show and you can just see Harry will just appear and give some like notes and some guidance to the camera guys and then disappear off again. He never stands still. He's but
at the same time, he's picking what shots are going on the live feed live. Yeah. You know, he's doing all of that. He's setting up before every single show. He's like taking everything down after. He's the one always in the van doing the massive long journeys to be there like several hours or the night before a show so they can set up first thing. And the amount of work that goes into the production, I don't think people necessarily realize that. And I know, and I've seen online where people, in fact, a lot are unnecessary.
So, me learning a new feature here in the editing software, how to do a voiceover, and this bit is actually really necessary because when I was doing the production of the episode, there were some things I needed to change, and basically in the background, the screen that Francesca is on and the screen that Dave is on is mixed around compared to where they normally are. So there was a little bit of background noise from Mr. Mark himself, and I was trying to limit the same with me, and I thought I'd muted both of our microphones, when in actual fact the one that I muted was Francesca. You can tell I'm still a newbie at this, despite being going for like 21 weeks or something at this point. But yeah, the point that we were making here was we were actually talking about people who comment a lot about the way people deliver and produce, and sometimes can go beyond the realms of valid criticism. I can sometimes get a little bit personal and need to remember that these are people who are going in there, doing their best, they're trying, they're learning, they're developing, and that, yes, there are times when criticism is valid, but maybe there are also times when we really just need to take a step back and understand that these people are all trying to do their best.
Yeah, I agree with
I
all
think
of
it's
that.
a generational thing because, like, I think we were brought up to just, like, if you don't have anything positive to say, don't say it. And do you know what, the number of times I've gone to write a tweet or I've written a reply to somebody and I've written it, looked at it and just thought, what good's going to come from saying this? And just deleted it and just thought, do you know what, I don't need to say it. I'll say it to my wife.
Yeah.
She can hear me say it rather than just put it out into the world. And you see it because you see people come out and they'll have a pop at somebody and then they'll learn more about the situation and then have to come out and apologise about it. And it's like, maybe if you just taken a backward step to begin with to learn more, you wouldn't need to do that. And then, the one for me, I've said this to people to their face so many times when people say, oh, RevPro, like they need to spend more money they need to get better cameras. They need to get better cameras for the thing. I'm like, okay, where would you like them to cut back in order to pay for those new cameras?
Yeah, we're not talking about a couple of £100. We're talking about thousands of pounds of equipment. And not only that, these are wrestling shows. It's not you get to spend this money once. It's they've thrown the microphone down on the floor. It's broken. These cables are broken. Oh, they've accidentally taken a camera out there as they were coming through the ropes. It's not just a one-time spend. There is continuous. I know that there was on Sunday, one of the cables snapped. And just even then, they're not cheap. So it's not just spend money on this once and it'll solve the problem. It's a continuous expense.
And like you look,
who's got to pay for that? Are they going to pay for that?
Yeah.
No, Andy Quilden has to pay for that.
Look at British wrestling companies up and down the country and think how many of them have been in business for 12 years? How many of them have grown in 12 years? How many of them survived the pandemic? How many of them have managed to, 12 years in, be running shows at the level that RevPro are running them at, but trying to do it sustainably? With everything done in-house. Shop RevPro is done in-house. The training schools are done in-house. The meet and greets are done in-house. The production is done in-house. And it's, when I did the Global Wars preview with Andy, I think we recorded it maybe Wednesday afternoon. And he sent me a message saying, mate, can we do it at 5 o'clock instead of 4 o'clock? Because I'm trying to sort out visas for the guys for Saturday. And you're 3 days before the show and he's doing really important paperwork. I remember talking to him last year before the Cockbox and him just being like, you would not believe how much work has to go into doing a risk assessment to run a venue we've never run before. So when people are saying, oh, when can you come to Leeds? Can you come to Birmingham? Can you come back to Cardiff? And it's like, yeah, we can. But the amount of work that's going to go into running a venue that's never been run before, you're going to need to fill that venue to make it worth everybody's time, as well as to pay the talent that have actually been booked for it. It's one thing I get on my high horse about it, because I only know like a smidge from behind the curtain, and I know that the little smidge that I've seen is just like the tip of the iceberg with how much work is being done. So like, I've only seen like a smidge from behind the curtain, but from what I can see, it's like you just see the tip of the iceberg, and it's a huge amount of work completed by a very small number of people who have other commitments as well. And I think people lose perspective of the fact that this is, yes, RevPro is arguably the biggest European independent wrestling company, but the biggest independent European wrestling company in comparison to the juggernauts of professional wrestling are worlds apart. And that's something that people, they forget and they look past, because we get all the, we've had Orange Cassidy on Revolution Pro Wrestling this year. At the weekend, we got to see like a who's who of wrestling from all over the world. I have a list. So I think Saturday was my 61st or 62nd RevPro show, and I've got a list of every wrestler I've got to see from going to RevPro shows, and it's insane the number of people and the quality of people. And then you kind of you just have to remember that you can't have everything, because if we had everything, if everything was tip top and super shiny, then RevPro would need a billionaire backer, like WWE have and like AEW have.
Well, you just have to think about like the production teams and the executives and all the other companies. RevPro is Andy Quildan. He does it all, and almost on a weekly basis.
Yeah,
that's the thing you say about the other UK promotions, but they're only once a month, once every couple of months. Some of them, pretty much. I think with RevPro, we may get 6 weekends off a year.
Yeah.
So we are literally doing shows pretty much every weekend. And some of those weekends are 2 shows, like your Stevenage Sheffield weekend. Or like this weekend, where we had Doncaster Dome and then New Japan on the Sunday. It's, a lot of work goes into what is RevPro, and every single person that's involved should be proud of what they do.
Absolutely. I think back to when I first started going to shows in 2005, and in the Doncaster Dome, right? If people go in and they see all the big screens and they're all looking pretty and everything, I was saying to Dave, Dave was like, where did such and such come from? I was like, well, you see that curtain over there? That was back in 2005. That was the entrance. That's what we had back then, right? You didn't have, you had maybe a projector screen that would have literally a projector playing some videos on it. And that was it. You didn't have all these lovely screens and graphics. God, if I wanted to watch a wrestling show, I couldn't log onto an on-demand service and pay £7.29, is it, Dave? Something like that.
£7.40, George.
That was it. So I couldn't pay £7.40 a month for as many shows as that. I had to go and find a bloody torrent site to download the Best of Dynamite Kid that would take me literally 2 weeks to download. That was what we had back then. You may do. So when I see people come out and talk about the quality of the shows, I think it gets lost on people what they've got for as accessible as they've got it. And then you've seen the work that Andy's got with all the production companies that come and record the shows now as well. So yeah, you want a high def one? Wait a couple of days and it's up, and it is proper good quality.
Yeah.
And look, I think Dave, when you said it's a generational thing, that's on the head for me, because when I was 10, 15 years ago, I'd be the person on music blogs going, this band is shit, right? Because I didn't like them. Now they're not for me, right? And I think that's the important thing to learn. Not everyone's going to be for you. You're not going to enjoy everyone's style of what they do, whether that's someone in the ring, someone on commentary, whatever kind of positions. You like what you like. Revel yourself in that, because there's so much choice out there now that I can go and watch wrestling from anywhere I like and find something that fits what I like. And that's why I like RevPro, because it all kind of fits that. There's just too much room for negativity. But I think, like you said earlier, that's where we grew up before social media. So we didn't live our lives on the internet. We actually went outside and played.
you know what you never hear though? You never hear the criticism of the in-ring product, and you never hear criticisms of a show. You never see fans leaving a RevPro show saying anything other than that was brilliant, wasn't it? What was your favourite match? And given the fact that we've talked about the fact that they're running, I think there'll be over 40 shows by the end of the year.
Crazy.
And you think, like, every time we go to a show, we're speculating as to what do you reckon is going to open the show? What do you reckon is going to be the main event? Because it's not like a formula and a format which makes it predictable. You're not punished for watching it regularly and watching it closely. Some products, the closer you watch it, the less into it you can get because it becomes so predictable. RevPro still has this way of doing things that shock me, despite the fact that I think I probably watch it more than anybody in the world. Like, I watch every show live. I go home and I edit photos that I've taken where I notice things that I didn't know were there in the first place. I write my reviews of the shows, and I normally watch it back with my kids. And then, so I've probably watched every show this year live and on demand. And yet, there are still matches like RKJ versus Michael Oku on Saturday, where I literally just sat there and stared at it and was like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how this is going to go. There is so much that I'm invested in. And that's like truly, truly special.
Yeah, it really is. So Francesca, you were obviously ringside for a lot of these matches as well. Obviously, I saw your reaction there when Dave mentioned RKJ and Michael Oku. What were some of the standout matches for you? I mean, I know that's going to be really hard to say on a card like Global Wars, where we said leading into it, every match could be match of the night. And like, it was just a phenomenal card, top to bottom. But was there anything that really stood out to you?
Well, that was my match of the night. Like, incredible. Literally, both of them delivered. Like, there were times that my chest was hurting from those chops. Blows my mind sometimes. But yeah, incredible match. And of course, then you've got Amira also creating the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Very good at what she does.
So special.
So yeah, that's definitely a standout. And how can we not love a Suji surprise?
Yeah, I loved that. It was
very, yeah.
We were sitting, George and I were sitting next to each other, thinking, saying, who do you reckon it's going to be? Neither of us said Suji, but when the minute the roar of his music started, you were just like, "Oh, this is brilliant! This is the
made
perfect
sense.
replacement."
Just my I don't know if I smiled so much, but it was just so lovely to be back in the ring with Suji again. And then, of course, at the end, where he was like, put my hand up, I'm like, okay. I had stick from all the refs after that. Oh, trying to take a job, are you? And I'm like, Suji, so
yeah. Are you going to tell him now? No, it was inspired though, really, wasn't it? Because we were saying, who's it going to be? And Andy was in a really tough spot. And again, this is another time where, again, pulls through, because I know there was a lot of people who were going there for Lio Rush. And purely, he was one of the big reasons I was going there. I wanted to see Lio Rush again. So there was a lot of people were booing right before it came out. And then the Raw happened. You go, this is really smart, because Leo feels like a part of RevPro. So that's why Leo felt like he was on that RevPro kind of style. But Suji also is RevPro. He's New Japan, but he's RevPro. And that's what I really loved about that.
And the response he got from the crowd was so heartwarming. Because he was with RevPro for a long time.
Yeah.
And then at Raw Quest, it was so lovely to hear his chants and come back and
yeah, it was so nice. So Francesca, you obviously spoke about Suji there, having the opportunity to announce him again. Who are some of your favourites to announce for, and for what reasons?
Well, number one favorite is always Michael Oku. Just because it just sounds like a great introduction to me, but it's where I get to really kind of push it, and I've kind of done that ever really since I started announcing him. And Amira actually said, she posted it online, that when they go other places, like, they've taken how I announce Michael, and that's how they do it. It was, and so it's kind of like I created something, and it's now going on to a further. But I one of my favorites, same as Robbie X. I love doing that. I just like, doing my job. There's no Legion anymore. I used to like that. But yeah.
Do you when you've got someone new and you go, I want to obviously announce them, do you put like a lot of thought into it beforehand and kind of like have a play around with things, or do you like to just in the moment try and figure something out?
Have you guys not noticed? Sometimes it's literally one of the words I say back to wrestlers often. I like obviously get all their details, what they want me to say, and I usually just end it and go, we'll see what comes out, and then walk on.
Love that.
With RevPro, it's very much, Andy said from me from day one, which is kind of how I've operated anyway in previous promotions. He doesn't want me reading anything. So you've got a lot of announcers, they've got their cards, and then that's how they're doing it all. Everything I do is recited. So when it also comes to a new wrestler that I've literally met, I've only got their details maybe 20 minutes before the show, if like usually no more than that. So that's me cramming it in my brain.
So how much is that thrown off when you have to work with someone like a David Francesco or a Sean Jackson, who likes to have a bit more of an involvement in what you say, or just takes over the role themselves?
Yeah, so I miss working with Double Action Sean, Action Jackson. That in itself took me a while to get my head around.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, no, I like it when wrestlers get involved. Although on the Southampton show, you may have noticed I had to get a piece of paper because David Francesca, he doesn't like people calling him that. Just gave me all of these things to say, and he said, like, write it down. So I was like, okay. And then so I was ready. So when he came out, I got my little piece of paper out, and I'm like, let's do this. And the patron saint of St. Mary's.
Indeed.
It was the home away from home town boy, I think it was. This is Alfie Bow, everybody. Just decided to get involved. This is my dog. He's been quiet though. Have you noticed how quiet he's actually been? I think he got it all out in the beginning.
A little cameo at the end.
Oh, always.
Yeah,
life is about him. He knows it.
But yes, the home away from hometown hero. That's something. That is.
Oh dear.
But then again, I think
David
Francisco really is something, isn't he?
He really is. Really is. But yeah, great guy.
Yeah,
actually, I understand why randomly Southampton love him.
Yes.
It's wild because it's not just since he's stopped being a contender. It was very prominent when he was a contender.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And his match with Shah and our chat with him on here really has made me look at him in a different light, from the Weasel, as I dubbed him, to maybe someone who is... He might be taking a different path to the one I wanted for him, but it doesn't mean it's the wrong path.
Mm.
Yeah.
The end will justify the means, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So, coming to an end, Francesca, looking like ahead, who's on your like bucket list of wrestlers that you haven't announced for that you'd love to get the opportunity to?
I don't know.
It's nuts.
Who's
Yeah.
still on my bucket list that doesn't make me sound like can't say like the Bella Twins, can I? I'd love to.
Why can't you?
But it just doesn't really give me
that.
much. I don't know.
So who would you love to announce that works for a promotion that RevPro work with that you haven't had a chance to? Who would you love to announce that's a real kind of, it's probably never going to happen, but if anything could happen?
Oh. No, even that's a really difficult question, because if it's with the companies I've worked with a lot of prominent figures in those companies, like especially with New Japan, like Hiroshi Tanahashi. I did that twice.
Yep.
This weekend.
Yeah.
Just gone.
That's crazy.
But yeah, it's terrible when people ask me. On the spot, I do. My brain just goes blank. Wow, no, there are names, but I'm like, I can't say those names.
Or maybe someone that you've announced for but haven't announced for a long time that you'd love to see come back.
Oh, Suzuki, always Suzuki.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because who doesn't love a murder grandpa?
Absolutely. And is there anything more special than Kaze Minoru?
Oh, I know. The first time I ever announced him, I was just so nervous. And they were like, say it after that. And I'm like, because my brain was just so frazzled, I'm like, but what? What? I don't understand what you're saying. What? But we did it. It was fine. It was all good. But yeah, see, that's the thing. I look at AEW and I'm like, Will Ospreay. I couldn't even tell you how many times I've introduced Will Ospreay. And like Carl Fletcher, of course, was Aussie Open multiple times at RevPro. I got to do Pac.
Yep. You got to do Pac for the AEW All Atlantic Championship. It was then, right? When we were up in Sheffield and you wrestled Shota.
It was, yeah.
And that was on AEW as well, wasn't it? On AEW TV.
Yep.
So
but actually fully on AEW Dark.
Yeah.
So still on YouTube.
Aside from actual AEW announcers, are you potentially the only person then that has introduced that under every iteration, i.e. the All Atlantic, the International, and the American Championship?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
That's quite
cool.
That's amazing.
Wow. Things I've done. It's crazy. Yeah, I got to do MJF.
Yeah.
Like that would have been who I would have said if I hadn't done it in August. This is what I mean. I'm like,
what is life?
What is life?
Like you think that, like, when I'm at school and like students discover that I love wrestling and they'll be like, oh, so do you like like WWE and stuff like that? I'm like, no, I follow British wrestling. I follow a wrestling company called Revolution Pro Wrestling. And they're like, oh, I don't know what that is. I said, well, name your favourite wrestler. They've wrestled for RevPro.
Yeah.
And literally, like, occasionally you'll get the kids be like John Cena or Roman Reigns. But if they don't say them, they've wrestled for RevPro. Because they'll go for Cody Rhodes. They'll go for Gunther. They'll go for Sami Zayn. They'll go for Kevin Owens. And you're like, yep. All these people have wrestled for RevPro.
I've just realised who is the one person that, because I was a massive fan as his previous incarnation, shall we say, at WWE. No, it would be Jon Moxley. Of course, it would be Jon Moxley. This is why you don't ask me things on the spot, because my brain just goes, everything that you've ever known in your life, gone. Like when I'm talking to people, and there are people that I've known for years, but if I go to talk about them, name's gone, and I'm like, what? I am so lucky. I'm going to touch wood right now, wherever that is. But that doesn't always happen to me inside the ring.
This is probably one of my most prized possessions. Is my signed Jon Moxley.
Oh wow! I've just downloaded his book. To be fair,
his book's incredible.
I think for me, like Jon Moxley is the one wrestler. If Andy Corden could book anybody for RevPro, he's the one that I'm desperate to see. Like it was always like Bryan Danielson would be like a dream, but it's like a dream that's like realistically not going to happen now. But it was, you know, we never thought we'd see Danielson wrestle again at all. And then when he did come back, it's like, you know, everything there is a bonus. But you think Moxley is one where that could happen. Like that is plausible. It's still really ambitious and would be incredible. But we had MJF.
Yeah.
So there is, you know, there is a precedent for these amazing things. But yes, I would absolutely love to hear Francesca Oliver ring announce Jon Moxley. Why not? Jon Moxley versus Luke Jacobs for the Undisputed Heavyweight Championship. Or Michael Oku versus Jon Moxley in what would be probably one of the most violent matches you'll ever see. Either of those, and stick an extra 0 on all the tickets. We'll be buying them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The man has, as the kids say, aura. Right. Thank you so much for your time, Francesca. Really do appreciate it.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me.
Very welcome.
And we will see you in the 229.
229. Yeah, next Sunday. I will see you there.
Look forward to it.
Fabulous. See you later.
Right.
Bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, mate.
Oh, Dave, what a wonderful conversation that was. Just so nice, wasn't it?
It's just like, she genuinely is like one of the most wholesome people and just completely like authentic and organic, and it was just a really nice chat. I really enjoyed it. Would love to welcome Francesca back onto the pod at some point in the future.
Absolutely. Definitely, I hope anyway, a repeat guest for us. But you know what, Dave? As part of that conversation that we're having, we never actually got into chatting Global Wars much, did we? So I suppose for a Global Wars recap episode, we better chat some Global Wars. Now,
You should, mate.
I reckon, mate, this is going to end up being a bit of a homogenization of Global Wars and requests, just weave in and out of it in the way that we do. So I really enjoyed Global Wars. I thought it was one of the best events of the year, especially from an in-ring point of view. And there's been some great events this year, but also from a pacing point of view and kind of how I felt at the end of this event compared to how I felt at the end of some other events this year. I thought it was really, really well done. What are your high-level thoughts on Global Wars?
I completely agree with you on the pacing. I don't do 9-match cards very often. There was a 9-match card in Coventry, which felt like it was 9 matches. High Stakes was 9 matches. Copperbox was 9 matches plus the pre-show match. I would say that of all of the 9-match cards this year, this one felt the quickest. And when we got to there being the final 2 matches, I remember checking the clock and being like, wow, we've still got like plenty of time to let these 2 matches really breathe. And it felt like they hit the heights at the right time. The matches that needed the big kind of spots and a big crowd and a hyped up crowd, like, were positioned so that they'd get that. And I really enjoyed that. I think it was the best Global Wars from the collection of Global War shows. Obviously, I have that kind of bias of the fact that I was there live for it and I wasn't live for any of the others. But objectively, I think that the balance of the show and the fact that every match had like some stakes and some story and some like real intrigue going in and coming out of it. Whereas in the past, a lot of Global Wars shows, and again, this might be because I'm watching it retrospectively and I'm not there at the time feeling all the little connecting pieces, but it felt a lot like two awesome wrestlers brought together for an exhibition match at a celebration of wrestling. This felt like it had more to it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, mate. I think that some of the matches that I had really high expectations for over delivered or met my expectations, which, considering how high I set them in my head, is always like real praise. And then some of the things which I had less expectation for, simply because, you know, not everything is going to be a 5-star match. Not everything is going to be like an epic saga. Like, had some really curious details that I was intrigued by. And then, like, with Royal Quest the next day, like, Royal Quest for me was like a really big over delivery. I think because I wasn't going to it live and because so many of the talents were on Global Wars in matches that I was more invested in as, you know, RevPro first, New Japan second guy, I looked at Global Wars, I looked at Royal Quest and was like, okay, I can live with the fact that I'm not going to that. There's nothing there that I'm going to be like absolutely devastated at missing. But then when I sat down to watch it, it flew by. I really enjoyed it. Every single match gave me what I wanted. And some of the matches which I'd been a little bit kind of like I hadn't expected as much from really delivered and reminded me that like just how good they can be. Like the main event was Zack Sabre Jr. and Sonada. My first thought was like, oh, okay, like that feels like a very safe main event. It's very clear who's going to come out as the winner. I've seen Zack Sabre Jr. and Sonada lots of times before in singles matches and multi-man matches. That'll be good. And then you're like reminded, actually, like these two are really, really, really good. And like Sonada, I think it's hard because he's pushed so hard, and that can be a bit kind of grating at times when it's like it's not quite hitting it for you, despite the push. But in ring, he is a phenomenal wrestler.
Yeah, he's a very good wrestler. I think for me, where I find it really hard to connect with him, he just feels boring, right? And that sounds like we're in a world where we've got a lot of great wrestlers, right? And this isn't a slight at him, but I love the way he used to stand out. His look used to stand out. And that's what I mean by boring, right? Like, he had a really unique look. And I'm not getting the vibe from him that he's follically challenged, right? I would understand as we get older, sometimes sometimes you have to wear hats more often than not, and stuff like that. But he looks like he's got a good head of hair on him. He can grow a good beard, and I think he had, again, I hate the word, but the aura, like he felt something a bit different. He felt like almost like a computer game character come to life, but like a Tekken fighter come to life almost, but not in a bad way either, not in an over-the-top way. It just felt different. And that's what I really love. And I think that in New Japan, especially on a product that, for me, as someone who doesn't speak Japanese, I'm going to presume here you don't either, Dave, but I don't speak Japanese. So when they do the promos, right, after a show and stuff like that, I can't really connect with those. So I have to really connect so much more with in-ring, right? And them as how they present themselves. And I think like the likes of Shinsuke Nakamura, Hiroshi Tanahashi, Okada, Naito, they've got those distinct looks and the way they carry themselves. Even Hiromu, Sonata doesn't feel like he has that. He almost feels like he's a little bit of a throwback to Inoki and how plain and he looks a little bit. And that kind of doesn't do it as much for me, and I think that for me that's where a little bit of that comes. But I can't deny that when I see him in the ring, he can go. Like, he's very good. I want to see that little bit more of something, a little bit more of a spark. But even with that kind of challenging me, I still thought it was a really good match. Really, really good match. And I loved the way it ended as well. I thought that it just looked incredible.
Yeah, I'm completely with you, and I completely understand where you're coming from, because, like, for me, Sonada with the the skull mask, and then he takes the mask off, and he's got the like white blonde beard and the hair. I mean, I'll say now, like, my missus, when she hates beards, but she was always like, he's by far the best looking man in New Japan. Like, absolutely the best looking man in New Japan. Why don't you get a t-shirt with his face on it? And then when he like shaved it all off, I completely get it, because it's like he is now like the clean cut baby face. And my missus now is like, perfect. He is now the perfect handsome man. But I'm like, yeah, but he's lost all the cool and unique factor, and now he's just like John Cena. Like, he's just handsome man, really good wrestler. But like I think his moonsault is genuinely my favourite moonsault of any wrestler in the world. He does it with such impact because it's so quick. It's like a snap moonsault, if that could even be a thing.
Yeah.
I love the skull end. I love the fact that he's moved away from the Paradise Lock, and it's like everything's just that little bit more serious in ring. I just wish that the old look was still there. I don't like change, and I love Lij, and I loved him as part of Lij. I thought they had Lij's balance back in those days perfectly. But yeah, I really enjoyed that main event. I loved seeing CPF in New Japan. And that was one that really surprised me when I saw them announced for it. And then the minute they came out and they wrestled, and I was just like, "Oh yes, boys! Like, this is where you belong." I thought Greedy Souls did brilliantly in the opening match. I thought I was watching it just thinking, this is what like the tag league needs. Like, New Japan fans would love Greedy Souls because they love out and out heels. They love people that they can boo. You know, that they love House of Torture. And although Greedy Souls aren't House of Torture, there's no denying that they are two proper bad guys.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that. I love the whole Robbie X thing, which I'm sure we'll get into in a moment. I really enjoyed the David Finlay, Taka Michinoku, and Gado bit, because I didn't see it coming. And I suppose I didn't appreciate how significant it was for Taka Michinoku to be on Global Wars. I didn't know the history. I didn't know he'd never wrestled in England before. So the fact that he wrestled for like a couple of minutes, but he had this big spotlight in the middle, and it was really nice for him. And I love David Finlay. He's one of my favourite wrestlers in the world. Has been for a really long time. He had a couple of like cup runs, a couple of years, New Japan Cup. He had some absolute bangers with Ospreay and Jay White. And I just fell in love with the guy. I think it was when Juice Robinson was injured, so he got a solo run whilst like Finjuice, couldn't remember the name then. Yeah, whilst Finjuice was sort of like inactive, you got to see Finlay wrestle solo, and I just fell in love with him. And then when he became leader of Bullet Club, it was a bit like, oh, okay, this is out of left field. And I know like lots of people like found it really difficult. They didn't like it to begin with, but I liked it from the very off. I liked how when he first started, he took a little bit of all the past New Japan Bullet Club leaders. He had like the little grey streaks of Omega. He had some ring gear that was inspired by different people from it. He took a little bit from all of them, but then quite quickly, but not like, it wasn't jarring. It was quick, but it was an evolution. Became his own man, and like is the absolute leader of the War Dogs. So yeah, I really enjoyed that, and I really enjoyed the one that I was looking forward to probably the most, and I thought really delivered for me was Yota Tsuji versus Dre Maloney. Just a matchup like, as you know, such a RevPro guy, that feels like such a RevPro match, and I've loved seeing the two lads like in their journey. So I really enjoyed that from Royal Quest.
Nice. Yeah, love that. And if you want to as well, you can actually go to shoprevpro.com and get yourself some signed 8x10s from the weekend as well. They are all up. I was just having a look to see what new t-shirts and New Japan stuff, because you know what? After this weekend, I was just like, right, I'm fully in that train to jump back on and get involved in New Japan. I like you said, the significance of the Taka Michinoku bit. For part of me, for a minute, was like, oh, will the odds of Gato and David Finlay overpower him so much that we might get a run in from someone? I was like, no, we're probably not getting Funaki as well, but that would. A Kai and Tai reunion would have been something else, right? But it's funny because talk about the matches, like that would have been one of the ones, even for what was a grand total of 3.5 minutes across the two matches. If I could have been there, that would have been one of the ones I'd have been most excited for, because, like you said, Taka Michinoku has never been here before, and you think going back to his WWE days that he would have been here at least on one-off tour somewhere in a dark match or a post-show match, but no, never made it, which is incredible. I found the Fujita and Oku match. I was surprised by the ending there. And this is one that I've had in the group chat with people, because wrestling's weird, right? That everything exists in this world, right? But sometimes they're in their separate worlds, and then sometimes they're not. And what I mean by that, because I've realised I've just gone all weird with it, but the last time Michael Oku was in that venue, he was beating Will Ospreay. Okay? So that was the match. And Will Ospreay is megastar, best wrestler in the world. And Michael Oku is beating him. And then I was like, but then he loses to Fujita. And I was thinking, okay, and this feels like one of those ones where it's not in the wrestler world. It just feels like this is our guy. We're putting our guy over, right? Which, that's what I mean. It gets weird sometimes that Ospreay will lose to some random guy there, but he's still the top guy in the world, right? But then I found it really interesting that they put out the promo video. And I take it you've seen the promo. Yeah. And I found that really, really interesting that came out, because it's recognizing that, hey, this is actually part of what we're doing here. And look, I'm just going to say kind of, look, because we've said this a lot, and this is just me kind of speculating. I could be completely wrong. I think there is a contract, at least agreed in principle or something somewhere, with someone and Michael Oku, right? That's nothing more than just a hunch, right? And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm not trying to put that out there as fact or anything. And that's why I thought all the RevPro stuff kind of felt like, to me, it kind of felt like it was gearing up to Michael Oku eventually getting his one last big shot and then walking off into AEW. Then this promo comes out and I'm like, I still think there's something there, but now I don't know what I think, because where do New Japan now fit into all of this? And it's a complete mindfuck, right? It's just like, and I love it, right? Because the thing that I love most about wrestling is two things. It's when I can sit there and we can do what we do, overthink the shit out of everything. And it still comes up in a way that, one, it happens, which happened with something on this card. I won't say I worked out myself. I saw it on Twitter, someone theorising. I was like, oh, that'd be good, wouldn't it? And then the other thing is if I'm completely wrong, but it still makes sense, right? Because then it still has the ability to surprise you. That's where I'm at with this. I feel like I could be right, I could be wrong. I don't know where I am, and I bloody love it.
Do you know what I'm fascinated by is I can see so many directions for where Oku goes now.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, linking Global Wars and Royal Quest, Oku survives, that's how he put it. He survived RKJ in Global Wars and came away with the victory. What's next for RKJ is going to be a question that is now going to be really fascinating to explore in future weeks. And it'll be interesting to see where, what happens with him on the next RevPro show at the 229.
Mm-hmm.
But Oku's, we know Oku's going to challenge Jacobs now. We assume, we don't know, but we assume it's going to be uprising. That seems the right place to do it.
Yeah.
Andy kind of alluded to it without saying it outright on the Global Wars preview. So, and then Oku made it really clear, I'm not going anywhere until I've had my shot at sort of redemption. So he's kind of putting that phrase in there of, you know, I'm not going anywhere until, suggesting I am going to go somewhere.
Yeah.
But then there's going somewhere and there's going somewhere, right? There's Will Ospreay going off to AEW, I'm gone forever, I'll never see you again.
Yeah.
There's Robbie X going to Japan, like, I'm off to Japan, I'll see you in a couple of months. You know, we're not going to see Robbie on the next 229 show, but he could be back by Uprising. And then there's kind of like, I'm going to go away for a while and you're just going to wait until I come back. Because Oku's kind of breaking down a little bit at the moment, right? We saw it at the, was it a Purpose show where he was carried out kicking and screaming?
Okay, right.
And then you've got this post-match promo where he's clearly devastated. It's like when Mills turned on him 2 years ago and he just looks lost. And Amira's got his back, and the way she looks at the camera at the end of that promo as if to be like,
oh yeah,
I'm not going to say anything, I'm just going to go and be with my man. She's put out a tweet saying, I will still believe in you even if you don't believe in yourself. And that's very much like, this is all part of that story. I can see, realistically, I could see Oku beating Jacobs and becoming champion again, but turning heel. I could see Oku losing and going away to AEW, whether it's forever or whether he's going to go and do 3 months down in America. Like him and Amira are going to go away, go and live in America for 3 months. On like a 3-month visa or something like that, and then come back. Or who knows? I could see him going out and doing something in Japan. I could see him becoming a worldwide wrestler in the sense that he's going to go and do a bit in Mexico, do a bit in Japan, do a bit in America, and it'd be like we don't see him on every RevPro show. I've seen. I looked at it the other day. I said it earlier in our interview with Francesca. I think I've been to 61 RevPro shows, 61 or 62. I've seen Michael Oku 61 or 62 times. He's been on every single RevPro show that I've been to, except a couple, but he's made up for it by doing double duty on other shows to balance it back out. He is Mr. RevPro. So I really do wonder what the future lies for him, but I can see him being the forever baby face because everybody wants to love Michael Oku. But I could also see a turn. I could see him going away and coming back as a heel. I can see you could see him being like the big money Matt Hardy kind of fame's got to him.
I was just going to say big money Michael Oku when you were talking about going to America.
I could see that. You could also see the Randy Savage, Miss Elizabeth, jealousy kind of direction for him. You can see him just becoming unhinged and desperate for his desperate for his gold back, and him being I always think of Gollum from Lord of the Rings, and him going down that line. There's so much there, and it's.
Yeah.
I said when Oku wrestled Ospreay at High Stakes, all you need is to have a little bit in the back of your mind that says, "What if Ospreay wins this? What if he's not leaving, or what if he is leaving with the belt and taking it away with him?" The only point where I stopped asking that question was when he said, "If I win, I'm vacating the belt." And I thought, well, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But with this one, if they avoid that and they, make it clear that, even if it came out beforehand that Oku was signed somewhere and he was off, the idea that he could take the belt with him, Mina might now take the belt to Stardom, like Ospreay took the RevPro belt to Japan, and that's, you know, he was always wearing the British Heavyweight Championship whilst in Japan. That adds so much interest, and I'm really curious. I will say RKJ versus Mike Oku was my match of the weekend.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that. It was a wonderful match. Like I said to you, I think it's somewhere between that and the main event of Global Wars for me. They're probably my top two, but I've got 4 matches that I've said if anyone said they were their match of the weekend, the other 2 being Robbie and Zach and Azumi versus Kanji. If anyone said any of those 4 were their matches, because I felt like they were all 4 top quality matches on a show that had top quality throughout, but they all represented something a bit different. For me with this match, and I've said this to you, Dave, and it's been something that I've kind of been thinking about, and this was a bit of a thinker for me. I said to you on the night, and I still feel this way, that this match felt like half like a WWE match, and I mean this in a positive way when I say this. I'll get on to that in a minute. And then half a RevPro match. And what I meant by that was the first half of the match felt very slow and deliberate, right? So you've seen it in WWE where it's relying on the facial expression. Like, obviously, I know that that's the job. The job is to do that, get you hooked in. RevPro got some of the best, but it felt like everything was a bit of a slower pace than normal. Not in a bad way either. Just allow things to breathe, really get the crowd into it, really draw them into things. And purposely, it wasn't just Michael Oku and it wasn't just Ricky Knight Jr., but there's a mirror on the outside as well.
Yeah.
Like, she played her part in this, the looks they were all giving each other. And it reminded me of like when WWE does do that slower storytelling, take that things back a half step, not in the way of like Roman Reigns walking around a ring and just talking and people going cinema, but actually like proper kind of just getting you in. And then they just went, crank it up to 11 and just went for it. Banger, banger, banger. One of my favourite images that will endure this weekend was Michael Oku was getting set up for a chop, right? And Amira, so where we were sat opposite. Amira was down here, opposite the corner post. She turned round, she saw what was coming, and she just looked straight ahead, and she just closed her eyes, and she just winced when the sound came. And I was like, that is what, when people kind of go, why she's so good, that's what she adds to that. It's like you're watching this match going on in the ring, you can see and hear it. You don't need to even be watching that moment, because you see her, and you see how she's reacting to it. You hear the sound, and you know what's happened, right? It's stuff like that where I felt like that really helped lift it up. We said before about things like fighting out into the crowd, and this was one of those occasions where actually I felt that the fighting in the crowd was done really well. I don't like knocking people out of seats and stuff like that, especially when you're paying 110 quid for a seat, right? I don't like when as a fan you're being made to move. And I felt that on that show, they did it twice and both times made sense to me for different reasons. So that was fine. It was something a little bit different. I thought the end of the match was great because much like we said last time, I could see either result happening, right? Yeah. Neither result would shock me. And for me, it also, and I mean this again, a positive way, it probably doesn't sound like I'm being positive when I say this, but for me, this was more about what I was most excited about was the guy who loses, right? And I'm excited to see what happens with Oku going forward, but I'm really intrigued on both sides. Actually, it was who loses that I wanted to see more, because it was one of those matches where I don't feel like either man really could have lost. And I felt like RKJ had more to lose in this, because we've said this, that it feels like RKJ is ready to break out into that top level again. He is there, like you've got the top 4, if you would, with Oku, Luke, RKJ, Mills, probably your top 4. Zazaya probably is in that as well, interchangeably with Mills. But they're like the ones off the top of my head that are your top guys in there. But he doesn't feel like he's breaking that top 2, which is Jacobs and Oku, right? They felt like the guys in RevPro, with Ricky being a former British Heavyweight Champion, So he should get that same feeling. But the booking of it maybe just felt like, okay, what we're going to do to reintroduce him back into that. And then we got the killer thing at the anniversary show. It was like, oh, is this going to lead to something? And it seemingly didn't in the way that we thought it might. It was like, okay. And then this was coming up, and it's like, right, so we're reinvigorating him by having that story, having that promo. And so I kind of thought, if I had to be nailed down for a winner, Ricky was the winner. Like, I could see him losing. I probably expected him to win more than I expected him to lose, which I felt would have probably put Michael Oku's descent into madness that bit closer. And then Ricky probably going that bit more heelish. But then at the same time, Luke does at the minute lean more towards heel. Both of them are kind of the same, that they're not out and out, but they lean more of a way. Yeah, I find it fascinating. I absolutely find it fascinating. I thought this was a tremendous match. This will be on the end of the year top 10. For sure, this will be on the end of the year top 10. I just thought it was brilliant.
100% agree with you. The fascinating word is, I don't think, I mean, you were sitting next to me. I was quite quiet all night. Sometimes I am. Sometimes I'm really noisy at the wrestling. Sometimes I'm quiet at the wrestling. I think it literally depends what side of the bed I wake up on. I'm one of those guys. But this one was different. I was really, really quiet for this match because I was just studying it. Literally, I sat on the edge of my seat and I just stared and I tried to take all of it in, and it rewarded me so much for it. The spot where Oku went for the springboard and Ricky caught him in the Kishi driver is going to be that is going to run around my head for years to come. That is one of the my all-time favorite wrestling moments, because I didn't see it coming. Then I completely bought it was the finish. It was executed perfectly from an athleticism and a timing point of view. It was just tremendous.
Yeah.
The thing that you were saying about the WWE pacing, I completely agree with and completely understand where you're coming from, because it's like they were really feeling the crowd out to begin with and then trying to work out, and part of it will be, how were the crowd going to react to Ricky? How are they going to react to Oku? It certainly started out quite anti-Ricky and pro-Oku, but it really balanced out as the match went on. And
absolutely,
I think that's because the pro-Ricky fans got louder and louder in defiance. And also the work that the guys were putting in just took everybody out of the controversy of the politics and the real life stuff, and just get lost in the wrestling. And it was the best Ricky Knight Jr. match I have watched in, I would say, since his match with Ospreay at York Hall. So what was that, 2 years ago? Over 2 years ago. His best performance by a distance. And that's not, again, we always say this on this podcast, that's not faint praise. That's not saying I haven't enjoyed his other matches. That's just how much I enjoyed this match. Absolutely tremendous. I love the fact that your top four were exactly the same as my top four. We hadn't spoken about that. You just mentioned to me that you had 4 matches that stood out, and I thought to myself, I had 4 matches that stood out too. I'll wait till the podcast to find out if they're the same. Azumi versus Kanji was beautiful. I absolutely loved that match. And what I loved was Azumi is clearly a special young talent. Absolutely, beyond what I was expecting given her age. But when you look at age in Japan is nothing, because Japanese wrestlers can be 21 and wrestle 400 times. So you have these kind of you have to remember how young some of these men and women start. But what I loved most was Kanji was 100% her equal in presentation, in delivery, in execution. and it was absolutely my kind of wrestling. I loved the styles clash, but I also like loved the technical, gritty side of it.
Yeah.
100% want to see more Izumi. 100% want to see more Izumi, and I want Kanji to be, talked about it before. I want a Cutthroat Collective member to be the next undisputed British Women's Champion from a storyline perspective.
Yeah.
I want Kanji to be the next champion as the woman in RevPro that deserves it the most.
Absolutely. I loved this match. It did exactly what I thought it might do. And I said to you, I was thinking about getting the Zumi meet and greet. And I was like, well, I've not really seen much of her, so I don't. It sounds really rude to say that like that, but I don't have that attachment yet. So I don't want to feel like I'm just doing it just to tick someone off the list, because it's not cheap at £30. Afterwards, I was like, if I was going to Royal Quest the next day, I'd have been buying an Izumi meet and greet. Like, that was the one that I felt like I got away from me a little bit. She was wonderful. Now, speaking about cage match and all that sort of stuff, Dave, she currently has, on cage match alone, 758 matches. All right?
How old is she?
She's 22. Not turned 22. This is her decade in pro wrestling. So when you're talking about how young they start, I thought I'd read somewhere once that she started about 11 or 12, but I couldn't remember. And in fact, we are literally a couple of weeks shy of when her debut was. The match was last week. So if it was 2 weeks before, we would have been on the weekend of her first show 10 years ago. So
mate, that's crazy. Like, my daughter's 10. So, like, if she started wrestling when she was, like, 12, and I look at my little girl and think, like, blimey, like, that's craziness. Craziness.
It is, but that comes across as well, doesn't it, in the level of what you've seen there. Having a look. 2019 match, including, there's RevPro names all over here. She was in a match which featured Zoe Lucas. Another match with Zoe Lucas and Bobby Tyler. B. Priestley is another one there. Like, there's all these people that, like, we're all familiar with, or you've heard names of. She's been with Momo Watanabe. All these names, like, everyone who is either a RevPro fan or someone who's probably knows a lot more about Joshi wrestling than I do, but even as someone who knows as like a limited amount as I do, there's all these names I'm seeing, like, going, I know these people, I've heard of all these people. I've heard how Jungle Kiona is another one who I know for a long time was really highly thought of, and Azumi's going up against her as well. So, like, you've got all of these big names, these big people, and she's learning by wrestling them 758 times in 10 years, which in itself is crazy, right? That's over one match a week. From the age of 12 on average. Crazy shit. But you know what? I really, really hope she's back in RevPro. Obviously, the match at Royal Quest, she was on the winning team. Yeah. But setting up Danny Luna getting the pin over Mina to become the number one contender. So, obviously, Mina Shirakawa defeated Lizzie Evo. Perfectly fine match. It's one of those ones where I think it was really highlighted Lizzie well. I think you can kind of see the progression again. We keep talking about this, the progression from her over the year. Mina is a package that you know what you're getting with her. I think she's fairly decent in ring, but relies a lot on character, and that's why. So you really get into her from that side. Lizzie also has the character as well, so it means that between the two of them, they can really control a crowd and they can bust out some good stuff in the ring. But Lizzie obviously losing, so again, that is where, interestingly, I want to see where that goes with the Cutthroat Collective, because she's had some big scalps, but Mina now goes on to face Danny Luna, which, looking at when, realistically, unless they do the trios weekend in Coventry, it doesn't look like it's going to be until early next year, which I think would be interesting for things, unless they had the match on a 229 show or something like that, because what we've got to remember is
Why can't it be an uprising?
well, the reason I say I think it'd be unlikely for a lot of these bigger names is the 21st of December. So we've also got to think about the willingness of people to travel internationally that close to Christmas as well. And I don't know how much that does affect some. I don't know how much some of that affects some of the foreign talent. Not going to kind of assume that people celebrate certain holidays, but
yeah, if it is uprising, that would be really interesting because, like, if uprising has Oku versus Jacobs and Mina versus Danny, that is two very clear rematches from the anniversary show.
Yeah, you're right.
And like, I'm all for that. Like, the story warrants it, but some people are going to moan about that. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the card is built. We can assume, I'm assuming, we're going to get Caven versus Leo Rush then.
I would, yeah.
Caven retained against Cameron Kai in a match that I'd like to shout out as well because they went on first. And like, if you think back to at the anniversary show, Ethan Allen and Con Mills went on first, and it felt like go on first, have this sprint of a match, get the crowd up, get over any nerves for like Ethan Allen, first time he's wrestled in a big crowd for a long time. One of the first times he's wrestled in a long time because of the horrific injuries he's had. And you think like they were given this really big spot. And then at Global Wars, that's the same sort of spot that Cameron and Caven were given. Like, go out and I actually think Cameron and Caven did an even better job than Allen and Mills did at the Copper Box. In terms of like, that was the best Will Caven match I've ever seen in terms of how much he presented himself like as like one of the guys in the company. He completely owned that ring. He looked so comfortable in it. He looked completely comfortable as, the ruthless disruptor. And he looked like he deserved to be on a stage with Hiroshi Tanahashi and, with Mascara Dorada, with Tomohiro Ishii and Mina Shirakawa and Azumi and people like this. It was one of the most confident and assured performances I've seen from Cameron Kai. And I feel like I'm saying that a lot lately. The match that he had in Stevenage at British J-Cup was one of the best matches I've ever seen him have in terms of how confident he was in the ring and how comfortable he looked. It wasn't that long ago that he beat Robbie X in Sheffield, and that was probably his win of the year in terms of like just how good he looked in that win. And it's I hate saying this because I always sound so patronising when I say it, and I don't mean it. It just comes from being an older bloke who's also a teacher. I was just so proud of them. I was so proud to see them go out and be given that responsibility and thrive under that pressure.
Yeah.
Just, you love watching people grow. It's one of the things that we love about like, grassroots wrestling, which effectively, British independent wrestling is. But absolutely, yeah, really, really enjoyed that. I'm assuming, therefore, Uprising, we're going to get Leo versus Caven. Unless, like you say, we know there's going to be some non-tournament matches at the Trios Grand Prix in Coventry. We've got 2 229s, a Southampton and a Sheffield. That's it before Uprising.
Yeah.
There's not many shows. There's not many shows at all. And I don't think that the Trios Grand Prix will warrant big matches because the tournament itself should take centre stage.
Yeah, of course.
Like, for me, that should take all of the priority. And then you just put in some fun stuff to pad it out and add diversity to it. But I don't particularly want like a big championship match on that card because I want the focus to be on the Trios Grand Prix.
Same.
So I feel like we're given that Uprising tickets haven't even gone on sale yet. We already feel like we've got about a third of the card kind of already in place, and you can start to think about what the rest of it will look like, which is just it's just good booking, isn't it? It's just good booking.
Exactly.
Let's talk Robbie X. It was very interesting, wasn't it? Was he going to leave with the black and orange of TMDK, or was he going to leave on Sunday with the black and white of Bullet Club? I'm really glad that it panned out the way it did. Obviously, as of we're recording this on Tuesday night, he is flying to Japan tonight. In fact, right now he's on a plane to Japan. That's amazing for him that he's now going to be in the Junior Tag League. I was already excited for Junior Tag League. I watch it every year. I enjoy it. I love New Japan. I'm so buzzed for it this year. This just adds so much more to it for me because it's he's one of our boys. So really, really excited for that. I thought that they got the balance between making it too obvious and keeping it a surprise really well. It was Aiden, wasn't it? Aiden posted it on Twitter that we both saw.
That's who it was, yeah.
I hadn't thought of it before he posted it. And the second he posted it, it was just yes.
Yeah.
I see it now. I'd seen all the individual parts. I'd seen the comment on Ishimori. I'd taken note of the change from King of the Cruiserweights to best junior heavyweight in the world. I'd watched the ELP bit in GWF, and you see all these little pieces, and you're just waiting for it all to fall into place. It's like when you're watching a crime show on TV, and you've seen all the little clues, all the breadcrumbs to work out who the killer's going to be. And that's kind of what this was. I thought the Robbie versus Zach was everything I wanted it to be. I knew it would be special because, I keep saying, Robbie is such an underrated technician.
He is.
Yes, he's an incredible high flyer, and that's what he is renowned for. But because of that, you forget how good he is at the technical side of it. So I love that. Zach is just the best, isn't he? He's just the best wrestler in the world when it comes to that style of wrestling.
Yeah.
Him and Danielson just see wrestling in a completely different way to anyone else that I've ever watched, and I love it. It's like watching Bret Hart in the 90s, and I grew up a Bret Hart fanboy, so absolutely loved that. Absolutely loved it, and the absolute pop that Robbie got at Royal Quest was really special. And I thought him and Ishimori looked amazing as a tag team together.
Yeah, so did I.
They've never tagged before, and they looked like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, it just seemed to fit like a glove. Like you said, when Aiden had mentioned that, I was like, oh, I like this. I want to see this happen. And like you said, but for most of the night, me and you were, in terms of talking, we weren't talking much. It was very much either just studying or reacting, right? That was the vibe that most of us got the whole night. It was either I'm really loudly getting invested in this, or I'm watching what's going on. And that was a lot of this match for me. It was really studying it because I felt like we had a really good vantage point for it as well. But because of the way the card had been paced, and this was a problem I had at High Stakes, right? By the time we got onto Mills and Zack Sabre Jr., I was quite tired by that point because long day of travelling and whatnot. And yes, I've been travelling up to Doncaster, but I felt that between kind of how much downtime I had before and the way the card was paced, I wasn't burned out by the time we got here. And I think when you look at the sort of the match lengths leading up to it, I think no match before it, not only one match broached 15 minutes, and that was literally by 1 second. So the other 4 matches in between that were all under 15 minutes. So they kind of they went, you're on to your next match. And I remember I said to you, I wonder when the interval is going to be, and you're like, I don't think there will be one. And I was like, oh yeah, good point. So that worried me because I really feel that on these bigger cards, an interval goes a long way sometimes, especially when you're 40 years old and your knees are just gone. Having that break and just being able to walk around is nice. So we get to this match, and I just thought everything kind of just clicked for me. Studying, watching what's going on, and we said about Kushida, and we did a shout back to that match about Robbie, about how his technical game doesn't get as much conversation as it deserves to have. This showed it, why. And it was interesting because I was debating back with some people, and this is what I love about wrestling, right? About the turn. But did it make sense for Robbie to join Bullet Club? And I think that's a testament to what Robbie does as a babyface, right? I can't comment on what he does in other promotions because I know there's a lot of promotions he works for and he might be heel in some of those. But in RevPro, he's probably like, but we've said it a few times about people being the ace, but he's probably the ace, at least the ace of the cruiserweight division, right? Like, he is that face. He's the guy that everyone loves Robbie X. The kids love Robbie X, the whole lot. So for him to then just kind of throw that shirt back, and when he gave him the shirt, I know I whispered to you, I went, is he going to throw it back? And he did, and it's just like, oh, that felt so good as well, because it's like, right, well, now I've got to see what happens tomorrow. And then Ishimori's in the ring, and he just goes, X! And you're like, is it? Is it? Because I had it loaded up as I was doing stuff, and it said the first match is going to be that tag match. I'm like, right, cool. I'm undivided attention. I'm sitting watching it. And you just hear those familiar, the fireworks sound going off. And it was like, oh my God, it is. See him come out wearing that Bullet Club t-shirt. Surreal. Absolutely surreal. Even though, and this is one of those things where the breadcrumbs and the conspiracies that you put together go, can this actually be what happens? And it does. And you're like, oh my God, this is not what I would have had on my list of expectation. But I'm so glad we've got it now. So yeah, I think it's really great. I think it makes complete sense in character as well for Robbie. Because people are like, well, why is he suddenly a heel? Like, why didn't he join Zach? And the guy, like, he's dropped the first hit by calling himself the best junior heavyweight in the world. They then say that they're bringing someone else in and do the X symbol. And he'd rightly go, well, I know Zach. Surely that's going to be me. Like, I'm the best in the world. And then they bring someone else in. And then basically go, okay. And then Zach offers him a tryout match, effectively. And you're like, Robbie Eagles does. Robbie does that, which is patronising to him because Zach couldn't even offer it himself. He sent Robbie Eagles to do it.
And Robbie Eagles absolutely disrespected Robbie X in Sheffield. Like, he worked heel completely in that match. He was disrespectful to Robbie, and then he teased him with the TMDK shirt afterwards. Mm-hmm. And like the whole time, like Robbie's not like an 18-year-old kid.
Yeah.
This isn't like Tanahashi saying to Leon Slater and Cesaro, like, maybe one day we'll see you in New Japan. Like, look, Robbie X is a guest for anybody in their stable.
Yeah.
You should be seeking his approval and like courting him, not like throwing out a pity invitation. Mm-hmm. And what I loved most about it actually was when you watched the match at Royal Quest, Robbie didn't do anything differently to normal. He did all his normal cruiserweight stuff. He did all his moves, didn't change the moveset, still reacted well to the crowd. Mm-hmm. When the crowd were cheering him, he was lapping it up. So I would say there's no heel turn. He's just joined the team that wanted him.
Yeah.
What will be interesting is when we go down to Japan, I imagine it will be more heel-based work. Mm-hmm. But then that kind of works in canon as well, because it's like, well, I've come out to Japan to entertain you, and you're all booing me. So you all then.
Yeah.
And that works. That works absolutely fine. And I think when Robbie comes back, Robbie continues to be a babyface. I think there is a big difference, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we're going to find this out in his New Japan run, which I'm really interested in. Robbie's joined Bullet Club. That's my interpretation. He hasn't joined War Dogs.
No.
He hasn't joined House of Torture. They're different entities. And if it turns out that we are going to bring some of these entities together, fascinated by it. Interested to see what happens. But as of right now, I don't see Robbie X as a heel at all. I still see him as a babyface in RevPro. And whatever he is in Japan is whatever he is in Japan. The same way that Gideon Gray got cheered like a hero in New Japan and gets, booed out the building when he's in the UK. So It'll be really interesting. Absolutely interesting to see.
Yeah, and you know what, Dave, that takes on quite nicely. And I think what we'll do is, before we get on to the main event, we'll do some really quick thoughts on some of the other matches, because as great as they were just more showcase matches. But speaking about Heroes Returns, Yota Tsuji coming out to replace Leo Rush, I thought was a great bit of booking. The crowd, like, of all the people that you could replace, Leo was one of the hardest, right? I think a lot of people would have been disappointed if Mascara Dorada wasn't on the show, right? But some people don't have that emotional connection they do with Leo, right? Evidenced by the amount of kids that were there to see Leo, the amount of adults, and you heard people literally booing when they said Leo wasn't there. And it's like, oh, right, he obviously impacts people that much. So you then bring out Yota, who is a New Japan guy, but he's a RevPro guy, right?
Yeah, the fans were amazing, weren't they?
Yeah, and I just thought that was really good. Look, the match was what it was. I didn't think it was anything special, but to be fair, that's when you got very, 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 very late notice bringing someone in. It's more about the moment than it is the match. And the guys were really trying to work out on the fly. Probably like very different styles, probably never met each other. They're trying to figure all of this out there and then.
The same language.
Yeah, so what they did and how they managed to get people in, this is where I referred earlier to just throwing in the chairs. Guys, if a wrestler tells you move, I'm pretty certain that Yota Tsuji is probably going to be the most polite man who's ever going to pick you up and move you out of the way. Just move. But no, it was when that was all going on, like, he was so lovely. He came down, he was just walking in front of people, getting the cheer, and that's what they were doing. They were just drawing you into it. So that's why I want to say it kind of is what it is. It was nothing blow away. It was a fun moment on the night, and I think it was, just a really nice moment.
Yeah, massive moment. I loved, like, Tsuji. But for anyone who's not seen any of the footage or wasn't there live, like, genuinely, I'm not exaggerating when I say that if you were to rank the biggest reactions that wrestlers got on the night, obviously, like, your Tanahashis gets a massive reaction, and then your Okus and your Luke Jacobs, like your hometown boys, like, you know, our very own RevPro wrestlers get these big reactions. But Yota Tsuji got as big a reaction as anybody. Like, people were up out of their seats, running to the front row to greet him, like they did when Zack came out with the IWGP title. Like, that was special. The match, I'll be honest, I didn't particularly enjoy the match. I found it quite difficult to get into, but I completely understood why, and I'm not judging it in any way.
Yeah,
I think if those two lads get the time to put together a match, then they deliver a really good match.
Yeah.
Clearly, Yota Tsuji's, like, sprinted up the M1 from the A1 from London, it would have been, and he's arrived at the venue last minute because Leo was a last minute cancellation. He's had to work out very quickly what he's going to do, and they've had to put something together. And you know, it reminded me of old school wrestling where they did used to call it on the fly in the ring, and people reminisce about those days, being like, oh, back in the day when wrestlers could really wrestle, and it's always like, yeah, but those matches were never very exciting, were they? Because they were just kind of slowly working it out as they went along. But yeah, no, I'm not judging it in the slightest, because they did the best with the situation they could have done, and the pop for Yota Tsuji was worth the moment. Enough for me. The other two matches that we're going to kind of bounce through, the tag match with Hiromu and Titan versus JJ Gale and Callum Newman. This is one of those matches that actually gave me more than I thought, because I really liked seeing the interaction between JJ and Callum at the end. Yeah. I've started thinking ahead to my 10 takeaways for the week, and the phrase "the more things change, the more they stay the same" ran through my head with this match, because Callum and JJ now, compared to when they last tagged together, two completely different wrestlers, completely different places in their careers. yet they still couldn't get the job done. And at the end of it, they still looked like, you know, lost and defeated. And that's, I actually really liked that.
Yeah.
I think he can probably blew some people away who hadn't seen him before. That
was me.
the flying lariat that he does in the corner where he flies through the ropes and lands on the outside gets me every time I see it. And Hiromu's just a star, isn't he? He just exudes star power the second he comes out. So yeah, that was really good fun.
Yeah.
And then we had the 6-man, which again is one of those matches where it's, you know, it's a great way of getting some really cool people on the card together, and a brilliant opportunity for some of these guys to work with Tanahashi and, you know, impress the president of New Japan Pro Wrestling. But I thought Mills looked so accomplished in this match. You could see that they were trying. You could see they were trying to impress Tanahashi. I love the way that Jay Joshua immediately was just like, I want you get in the ring. I want the ace. I loved that, like, bold as brass, just, you know, not shying away from it. Gabe Kidd's always good fun. Like, he's perfect for those sorts of matches. Leon blew people away, and Zazaya was, you know, as over as anyone has ever been who's only been in the country for 6 months.
Yeah.
So another just really good bit of booking to put these 6 guys together.
Yeah, I thought so as well. I've famously said I'm not a fan of trios matches all that much, but this was, to me, a good use of it. It was a guy who is older and limited, but has amazing star power. And it doesn't matter if he just gets in there, does a few bits at the end. It's like, wow, it's Tanahashi. Leon does what Leon does. Zaya does what he does. Like, again, it sounds almost a bit like faint praise as well when I just go, they do what they do, right? But they do, right? I think Leon has gone from being one of those people that everyone like goes, wow, Leon Slater, to almost understated a little bit now. Because it's like Leon's level is so high that his bar and base level is so high now, right? Where you're just like, yeah, it's going to be a good match. And then you watch and go, this is a guy I can feel, again, sometimes taken for granted in real time because of just how great he is. Which, obviously, Hiroshi Tanahashi gives the seal of approval to his 2 tag team partners. But I think, much like you said as well, I think Mills and Jay Joshua, they will definitely have been leaving an impression, I think, on Tanahashi. So I think that covers all of the card, doesn't it, Dave? So up until the main event. So this was an interesting one, as we said last time. I think you said that you felt this had the potential to be the match of the trilogy. I said I didn't think it would, for me, beat the match of the trilogy. But I also explained why, for me, it was a moment in time, right? That was just, everything was about that moment, was a perfect moment. I feel like I'm Marty McCutcheon here saying that. But this match really, really, really got close. Like, even if you have a look at the... I was going to say, if you have a look at the ratings on Cage Match, I know that's not the be-all and end-all, but of the people that voted, Oku and Ricky Knight Jr. got an 8.0. This match got 7.96, right? That kind of just shows how these matches split people in terms of, like, if you had to pick a favourite match. Like, it was so close, but yeah, I love this match.
It's funny, I said, you said that you didn't think it would be able to top the first one. Like, say, a moment in time, a breakout moment for Luke Jacobs, this real kind of, it really was special. And I, you know, being the ever romantic and optimistic West Ham fan that I am, I said that I felt like the cathartic moment of Luke winning could tip it. And then Luke came out. And the minute he came out, I was watching him and I realised I was completely wrong. Because there wasn't going to be any catharsis. The catharsis would have come had he beaten Ishii at Crystal Palace. Because in that match, you're like, can he do it? Can he do it? Can he do it? Whereas in this match, the whole time I was like, when's he going to do it? When's he going to do it? Because I never doubted that Luke Jacobs was going to win this match.
Yeah.
Now, for me, there's two ways of looking at that. One side is, yes, storyline-wise, these people are booked and it's predetermined. There's going to be a winner. Luke Jacobs isn't going to lose this match. They're not going to take the title off him this early in his reign. So there's that side of me thinking he's never going to lose the match. But when I'm at the wrestling, I'm very good at suspending that part of my brain and putting that in a box, pushing it to one side and losing myself in what's happening. It's why I love wrestling so much. It's the only time I get to do that. And I still never felt like Jacobs would lose because he never looked like he was going to lose. Because when he came out and when Ishii came out, he didn't look like the young British lad against the Japanese veteran. He didn't look like the young, like 23, 24-year-old, like Manchester lad with his like floppy hair who looks like he's about to try and ruffle some feathers with one of the toughest bastards to ever step foot in a professional wrestling ring. He looked like he was Ishii's equal, and he made Ishii look like a little old man.
Yeah.
Not in the sense that you know he made Ishii look bad. In the sense that he leveled up, and that was the whole point, wasn't it? It was to show how much Jacobs has leveled up. And then I realised, no, I've got this wrong. This is not going to be a cathartic moment. This is the solidifying moment.
Yeah.
This is like when Oku beat Zach Gibson. You know, it's like that. Okay, I've got a big test now. It's like when he beat Gabe Kidd in Stevenage as well. It's like I've got a big test. I want to show that I'm at that level.
Yeah.
And that's what Jacobs did here. And I absolutely loved it. They seem to hit each other harder than anyone has ever hit anybody. They took my breath away with some of the lariats and the sequences and the reversals that led to these, you know, absolute kind of haymaker shots. I came away from it being like, wow, that was the match of the night. And then it was only like when everything settled in that I was like, no, it wasn't the match of the night. RKJ and Oku was. Like, that was the one. But the fact that we got both of them on the same card is ridiculous.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
That Oku and RKJ match headlines any RevPro show. Like, that headlines the Copper Box. And they don't do anything different. They literally wrestle the exact match they just wrestled, and it headlines the Copper Box.
Yeah.
This Ishii and Jacobs match headlines the Copper Box. They don't do anything different. They wrestle the exact same match. We got two genuine headlining matches, both given the time of a headlining match, and all four men delivered like it was a headlining match. And then you've just got this ridiculous undercard that we've just spent the last hour like purring over. Yeah, I absolutely adored it, mate. I do genuinely believe that it's a show of the year contender. I think if it had been Leo versus Dorada versus Yota Tsuji versus Dorada, it is the show of the year, and there is no discussion about it whatsoever. And you know, that's completely out of their control. And Tsuji and Dorada, with the right time to prepare a match, would have been very different to how it did go. But you know, if you put that one to the side and then you look at the other 8 matches, like, you think people pay 30 quid to go and watch that?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely nuts.
For me, yeah, so this match, much like you said, there was no kind of suspension of disbelief for me, right? And I think I find that harder sometimes, right? Because my brain just, like, even when I'm there, you have to, if I'm in there, you have to make me believe, right? Because my brain logically knows how wrestling works, right? It's fundamental level. That's not trying and be anything more than I am or try and be smart. Just I've watched so much wrestling over the last 30 odd years that I know how it works. So sometimes it's harder because you go, right, Ishii's realistically not going to win here, because if he does, and now he's champion, like, how often is it? Like, all of that sort of the logistics come into it. They could pull a Mina Shirakawa at some point and do that sort of thing. Oh, okay, what's going on here? The first match was, and I think that's why I like it, it's that true underdog story, right? Luke Jacobs he's growing and growing and growing, and he gets so close, and you go, oh, couldn't quite do it, but you know what? It's like when your football team, right, are the underdogs, that FA Cup game, right? If they win, they're going to get into the FA Cup semi-final against Man United, right? They're going to go against Man City, Liverpool, those big teams. They're going to get them at their home ground, right? All of that sort of stuff. That's what it feels like. And that, you know what? They gave it their best, right? Talk about it for years. The second one was the cathartic moment, like, oh my God, he's going to do it now, isn't he? Like, he's had that roadblock. He was so close. And he doesn't, you go, oh. And you just feel that bit more sorry for him a little bit. And then in Sori, that moment is what takes everything he's done this year and goes, let's see, fuck it, leveling up. This match, like you said, it wasn't the catharsis in necessarily of that he can beat him, but I think it was in some sense in the way he beat him, right?
Mm-hmm.
He could have,
him, wasn't it?
but he could have got the 3 count, right? He could have done it that way. He didn't. He literally choked him out and made sure he couldn't stand up on his own 2 feet, right? This wasn't just a quick 1, 2, 3, I pinned him down, on another day he'd have kicked out. No, this was as definitive could be. And that is what I think the cathartic moment was. It was like, right, no one can say, like, JJ Gale was giving it the whole, well, I'm going to do it, you couldn't, I'm going to beat him, right? He's got that now. He's like, no, you know what? I beat him and I also put him to sleep, right? If someone else beats Ishii and they get a pin, great. But Luke still put the guy to sleep, the guy that he went to war with. I thought that where they did a really great job is where I sometimes can't compartmentalize that element. Like with Oku and Ricky, I was able to because they were doing such a great job. I'm not saying these guys weren't, but I don't think there was anything that Ishii and Luke Jacobs could do that would make me think it was in doubt, right? I just don't think there is. All of that aside, loved it. So I need to watch them both back and see which one for me. But you know what? In this case, does it even really matter, right?
No.
That was it. Like, you've got 2 matches that could headline York Hall back to back. Because I won't lie, when they put the women's match on before Michael Oku and Ricky Knight Jr., I was like, they're both going to be longer matches. They're both going to be heavily story and emotion driven. And not that I thought it was that put the women's match in the middle but I thought maybe put a match in the middle that probably wouldn't have quite so much emotional stakes needed for it.
I thought that's where they'd put the 6-man with Tanahashi.
Yeah, exactly. And then as we were getting closer and we realised that there was 4 matches left, that was the match I thought we'd get. And I thought maybe we might get Zack and Robbie X in there because, again, that as great as those guys are, different dynamic, yeah. But no, to put those back to back is quite a brave thing to do, and it paid off. Absolutely paid off. The venue, I know that based on what they were saying, ticket wise was sold, and people were looking at ticket maps. I thought the venue looked like it sold quite well actually on camera. I know that there was a couple of rows of seats around ringside taken out, but actually I felt that just in the venue, it just made it feel a bit less crammed as well in a good way. I really, really, really hope this gets people back to Doncaster though. I know people have said that what people generally go for in Doncaster, like I've been to wrestling there, and look, we can talk about what was drawn in 2005, and yes, ex-WWE names during 2005, but also it was off the back of TNA and indie names that drew back then as well. Like Christian Cage was a TNA name at the time, yes, ex-WWE, but AJ Styles wasn't, Christopher Daniels wasn't. There is people want to see good wrestling, and I think putting cards on like this, if again, all I'll say is if they do it again, and I really hope they do, make this your Global Wars home. Make this a place where you can go and see these matches. Have your Royal Quest down south. Go up north and you see Global Wars. Get to see all these guys that you wouldn't normally get to see and do something a little bit different. Travel to it. please, if it comes back, travel to it and buy these tickets and just make it the event that it deserves to be in the calendar, because that was bloody good.
I'd love to see how it would sell if they did an out-and-out RevPro show up there in Doncaster Dome with no Royal Quest the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Because going to so many RevPro shows that I do, and being a people watcher with ADHD, which is me, it's worth saying, if I'm talking to you at a show and I'm not making eye contact and I'm sort of eyes all over the place looking around, please don't think I'm being rude. I really don't mean to be. I just literally can't stand still. But because I do that, I notice people and I recognise faces. I've got a teacher's ability to remember faces and names and things like that. So I like standing there looking around, sitting in my seat, looking all around. There were a lot of people I'd never seen before at the Doncaster Dome. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of people that I normally see at RevPro shows that I didn't see.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people didn't go to Doncaster for it because they were going to Royal Quest. And when the two shows were announced, there's a lot of people, like there's you and me, they announce the show, we buy a ticket. We wait to see what happens. Then there are the people that wait to see what happens, they buy a ticket closer to the time.
Yeah.
And because people had done that and the Royal Quest got announced, they're like, oh, I'll go to London, I'll go watch that instead. I think a lot of those people would go up north to watch it.
Yeah.
I literally can think of sort of like, and I know I'm not talking massive numbers, but if I can think of 15 or 20 people from 229 shows and, Stevenage shows that weren't there, you can imagine there'd be another, 50 people, another 100 people that might go up for it.
Yeah.
And that, that adds, you add an extra 100 people to the venue capacity, and suddenly it looks like it's sold much better. I'd be really interested to see how an out-and-out RevPro show would run without like all the global, but like an uprising, like a high stakes, something like that. And I hope I'm a firm believer of like, if you do something once and it doesn't go well, give it another go to see if you can learn from the first one. And if it still doesn't go well, then maybe you call it a day. But obviously, that's me talking hypothetically, theoretically. I've got no investment in the company. It's not my money that's hiring the venues. It's not my money that's paying the wrestlers, and it's not me that's, knowing how much money I have to take in to break even on a show. So just from a personal point of view, I'd love to go back. I'd love to see it have another go, and I'd love them to make a success out of it. And you never know. Maybe the final attendance figure did make a success of it for Andy. Well,
absolutely.
Maybe somebody will ask him on the Friday Q&A. I'm sure they will.
Yeah, please someone. Well, I say please someone do. This will be out after the Friday Q&A, so my please means nothing. Yeah. You know what I think would do really well thinking about it? I think a Revolution Rumble, because it bridges that gap of, it's a very RevPro show. You could bring one or two surprise, like ex-WWE or notable names in, but you can also get a Rumble format.
Josh Alexander this year, didn't we?
Yeah, you could do a Rumble format where then maybe what you do is you maybe link that in the next day with the Sheffield show, because it's not far away, right? So do something like that. But hey, look, Andy, we're available for ideas if you want us. Not going to say they're going to be very good ideas, but we're available for ideas. Dave, that feels like a great place to end the show.
Yeah.
A wonderful weekend of wrestling.
Thoroughly enjoyed it, mate. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Until next time, my friend. Catch you later.
Bye, guys.